Is 2026 going to be the year that healthcare, the medical system collapses? That's the question, because there are a lot of forces out there working against good healthcare. And we may be reaching a tipping point. We're going to have an open, honest discussion as three doctors about all the reasons why things may really take a turn for the worst now that 2026 is about to be upon us. And for anybody who enjoys our discussions, make sure you sign up for our separate Doctors of Ojai channel, link down below in the description. Also check out on our website our new ebook section with new ebooks, all related to your health and well-being. Let's dive right in then. Super important topic. Dr. Ben, why don't you get us started?
Well, the first one is that healthcare has become, and has been for quite some time, completely unsustainable, financially as well as in many other ways. But the current cost of healthcare is outrageous. You've quoted before on this channel, the percentage of GDP is staggering, but it's unsustainable in so many ways. And you at home, if you've been hospitalized or you've had medical bills, you can see what you're being charged for your medications, for hospital stays. I mean, the amount of money is absolutely staggering. And the system's going broke in so many different ways. And there are many special interests circling. We all know about them. We'll call them out: the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, and how they're taking ever more money out of the system, out of your pockets, and making the entire thing unsustainable.
That's so true. You see a lot of venture capital firms now getting into healthcare and buying up healthcare systems for profit. It's that for-profit corporatization of healthcare. We have inflated facility fees. And if you've ever seen the fees, or you've seen your bills when you go home, when you're in the hospital, like how much a hospital will charge even just for like one night stay. And those are just incredibly inflated prices. And that's just not a sustainable model. Insurance prices are raising too across the board.
They are. Yeah. I mean, the statistics are staggering. I've seen some statistics. I believe you've alluded to this before, Dr. Ben, about how healthcare, specifically Medicare, which we know is a subject close to a lot of your hearts, Medicare spending may well surpass the US military very soon as well. When you think about that, that's staggering. And it really is unsustainable when you have all of these different players, soaring costs. We see it every single day. At some point, surely, there will be a tipping point and the system will implode.
Well, there has to be. They keep doubling down to try to get Medicare to limp along ever longer. But there is going to come a point where it is just too much money unless you make a major change. If you keep going down this same road, it is not sustainable. You can't do this forever. And this system, the way it is currently designed, the way it is currently practiced, is going to collapse. Now, many of you at home have probably noticed ways in which it's already collapsing. We're beginning to feel that happening. So it's very possible that this is the year when it really hits rock bottom if we're not careful.
Yeah, that is a very scary thought. And we know many of you have experiences with this, especially escalating costs. Please feel free to share your stories down below if you feel comfortable doing so, because more of these stories, more of these personal stories need to come to light. I mean, we can talk about our experiences as doctors, but what really matters is you. This is all about you and you needing and relying on the system, which is simply imploding. And we see that every single day. This is an unsustainable trajectory that we're on. I mean, the costs are staggering every year, and many Western countries are following a similar pattern. But the US is off the charts. And I always find it interesting, coming back to costs, anybody who's looked at a hospital bill in the United States or even a regular healthcare bill, I've had this debate with doctors online who, of course, regularly accuse me of spreading misinformation. You're not allowed to say the things you do. Well, I say to them, have you seen a hospital bill? How could anybody look at a hospital bill and not conclude that the entire system is a scam?
And they're impossible to follow, too. There are all these charges that don't make sense. I mean, now the funny thing is it's designed, the rates are increased so much because they know the insurance companies have negotiated only a small percentage of that, right? So they're not going to pay that whole bill. But if you don't have insurance, you're getting hit with the entire thing, which is a ludicrous amount of money. I mean, unpayable. There's so many people in debt from medical bills. It's becoming a disaster. It is an absolute disaster.
No, you have such a good point. And it really is the people that don't have insurance that really face those inflated prices because they have inflated them because they know that, well, maybe insurance will only pay 70% or 60% of what we're charging. So we're going to inflate it by another 40%.
Yeah.
And the charges are just incredible. I mean, look at your bills when you get it from your insurance and everything. It's crazy.
And we are going to talk more about how all of you can prepare yourself for probably some bad things which are going to happen. We don't just want to focus on problems here, but that leads nicely on to the next point. The truth about the system, which you feel every single day, is patients are fed up. They're getting terrible care every day. How long can a system go on like this?
I mean, much of the day when you see patients is spent with them talking about some aspect of the care that was they either went to the ER recently and had an awful experience. They had an awful experience with a different healthcare system, with trying to get an appointment, with trying to get a specialist, with the medications not being covered, with labs not, and it's just this sloppy, messy system where nothing talks to each other, where these hidden costs keep appearing, where the insurance companies keep saying they won't cover things. And you can see it in every patient. It's like, this is not what we're trying to do here. This is not why any of us became doctors, to have patients have these hideous experiences where they're just miserable within the system.
It's gotten worse and worse. Even in the past 3 to 4 years, I've seen a surge in just how terrible care has. And it really all started when everyone had to get electronic health records and everyone was mandated, but it was not mandated for them to be interoperable. So you've experienced as patients where one healthcare system or your doctor's office doesn't talk to another doctor's office, and communication breakdown is such a widespread problem in healthcare. People can't get in to see their primary cares. So we become a system of not of continuity of care, but a system of urgent care, where you can't get into your primary care. So you end up in an urgent care where they don't know you. They try to change something. There's no one that's available to follow up on the changes at urgent care. And people will end up back in emergency centers and, and it's not acute care, but that's what's happened because the access to care. And I think you can all feel out there if you've gotten a referral to a specialist or you need a colonoscopy or some procedure, it's booked out 6 or 7, 8 months. And that's just unacceptable.
It is, yeah. And you mentioned not being able to see a primary care. I mean, there are no primary cares. I know that every patient in the country wishes they could have a doctor like Dr. Ben. I wish if I ever need a primary care doctor, you will be my doctor.
Of course.
If you accept me. But I really don't understand how any system can function when primary care is decimated. And I spend a lot of my time as well as a hospital doctor hearing about these experiences. People can't get the follow-up they need. In fact, many people who are watching right now, if you're overseas in a country like the United Kingdom, you might be really surprised because you would think in the US, because it's supposedly private care, that people get good and timely care, but they do not. And they still pay out of their noses for this and can't get in touch, can't get the primary care doctor. Questions over their health, their medications are not answered. And a big one really is that feeling that you go to a doctor and you're just part of an assembly line. That doctor is following protocol. They have 3 minutes with you. They don't discuss your health in a holistic way. It's just about the prescription. It's protocol. I mean, It's so obvious that this system is going to collapse. Surely anybody with an ounce of common sense can see that this is not going to be sustainable for that much longer.
We used to be the primary care that would actually know you. They'd know something about your health. And that goes back to the continuity of care, where a lot of times, I bet if you go to your primary cares now, it's rare that you actually even see your primary care. You may see someone else who's filling in for someone else, or that primary care is left and you've been transferred to someone else. And it's just, there's no continuity of care. And so you can't really rely on your primary care now for your healthcare. And I think that's a really important thing to bring up here, is because those days are over where your primary care will have your back if anything comes up, because your primary care may not even be there next time you see them. They may have been fired because they're part of a corporate healthcare system, or they're overworked or overbooked.
Yeah, I mean, many doctors feel trapped. As I've always said, I do think that the medical profession shoulders a huge amount of responsibility for letting this happen. But what do you do when a doctor is trapped within the system? Maybe they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and they have to have a job, they accept an employment contract, and then they have to follow protocols and they're stuck within the system. I mean, long gone are those days where doctors had autonomy. It's just a really, really sad situation,
It is.
most of all for you watching.
I couldn't agree more. The idea of primary care is to be the backbone of the system. It is that relationship with the primary care doctor that knows the patient and the patient together. They create, as far as I'm concerned, kind of the epicenter, and everything should revolve around it. But once you destroyed that relationship, the whole thing began to untether. And I think that's when it all began. And you're right, it was corporatization. And Peter, I loved your point about how it's become a system of urgent care, not a system of primary care. I think you're right on the money.
Yeah. Which actually, urgent care, emergency care is probably something that United States does better than any other country.
Yeah.
But we don't want things to get to an emergency.
Yeah, I don't think anyone out there can say that they've had a great experience at their doctor. And I'm not just picking on primary cares. And I think that, a lot of the specialties, including cardiology, is that you've gone to try to get an appointment or call the office and you don't get a call back. It's an urgent message or some medication problem, and you can't get anyone to answer a phone, and you can't get it. It's just a whole cycle that I don't think anyone has a positive experience with this whole model of the healthcare that we have now.
Yeah, true. Which leads nicely back onto the next point, actually, which is the influence of technology in old systems collapsing, old ways of doing things collapsing. We've talked about artificial intelligence, AI, many times before, which is a double-edged sword. I know many people out there have concerns about AI. I personally think that AI has the potential to be amazing. I mean, think what AI could do. If any of you have been on ChatGPT, for instance, ask it a question, even something a little bit like off the cuff or something unusual about what's the evidence for this specific treatment, or show me anything positive from this. It will give you way better answers than any doctor or any human being in terms of what's out there. Obviously, you have to be a bit careful because there's a lot of establishment information out there, which is driven by other interests, but you can often decipher that quite quickly. You can even ask AI to give you something clean of conflicts of interest as much as possible. But I really believe that this is going to be a game changer.
I agree. Once we can be shown that privacy is kept in AI, I think people and patients will accept it more. And what I think that the big wave in healthcare is really a lot of the mundane tasks that really weigh down your doctors and nurses, and to get rid of those tasks, like scheduling tasks, calling, getting return phone calls, all those things that really can take away a lot of time during the day. Patient charting and noting, which from a doctor's perspective really sucks time away from the patient. And it would be really great if AI could come in, and it will, where you can actually just come in the room, not have the computer screen between, yourself and the doctor, and you can actually just talk as a real human to your doctor and not being behind a computer and typing the whole way.
Well, that I agree. I think if it can take a lot of the stuff that's not patient and doctor centered, a lot of the kind of paperwork stuff away, I think that would be great. I think if it can improve access, so if there's some system that's available 24/7 that you can ask a question to, because you can't get your doctor 24/7, that might be helpful. I do worry about it a little bit, and it being implemented in a way that actually hurts people. And the way it could do that is if insurance companies get a hold of it and say, well, you have to put your symptoms through this AI algorithm, and if they don't, if it doesn't check off green, then we're not paying for any of it.
Yeah.
And that makes me very nervous because there's a lot of stuff. So human beings live in the gray. We all live in the gray. And there's that's why you go outside of guidelines sometimes, because you're talking to a person, they know their body. They're asking for something that's a little bit outside of what's normal, but it would be good for them. And that's when insurance companies and everyone will say, well, we're not going to pay for it. But you'll say, look, this is a special situation. This is I have to take each person separately and look at them and what they actually need. And that's where I worry it could streamline kind of denials and stuff like that.
Well, I think it's already doing that. And I think that across the board, and there have been news reports of AI already being used by insurance companies to flat out, within seconds, deny pertinent care, treatment, procedures. And I think that's probably why you'll see, and I've seen it in practice, is if you're scheduled to have a procedure or have something done, that you're going to get a call saying it was denied or it needs some type of authorization.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to interrupt that awesome discussion for a moment. This is the really boring part where I tell you all about our expanding natural health and well-being store. So I will cut right to the chase. Check in the links down below. ohighwellness.com if you're in the USA, North America, ohighwellness.co if you're in the UK, Europe. As somebody who has taken natural supplements for my whole life, it has been a pleasure to work with a great team, formulating unique products, covering basically every body system, ranging from immune support, bone support, memory support, heart support, sleep support. We also have an expanding range of food and beverage products. Check out our protein thin snack, and we are expanding on our wellness teas. We've especially had some awesome reviews for our organic chai mix. All those links down below. Okay, back to the discussion. Yeah, I call this a yin and yang of life. You have a new technology and it will be used for good and bad. But I share that concern as well. I also share the concern that AI will, as much as it will help people, the big corporations are going to say, oh, doctor, you've got so much free time now from not charting. So guess what? You're going to see more patients. So it's still squeezed appointments, but you just see more because AI is doing all of the paperwork. So that's what you have to be careful of. But yeah, there will be downsides. Please share your concerns down below or any positive experiences you've had with AI. But it's like, well, transport. You develop mechanized transport and hey, you have a car, but 2 years later you have the tank, which is going to go and kill people. This is always the way technology works because humans will be humans.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, AI is a tool. And so far, what I've seen in the medical field is no single tool or technologic innovation I've seen has wildly changed the practice that much of medicine. People are still sick. They're still having an awful experience. And I think the reason is because it's about how we feel and how we treat patients and how we as a system, what we value. If we continue to value money and profits over taking care of people, it doesn't matter what tool you implement. It'll never do the job it's supposed to. So, and that's to improve people's lives. So that is my big concern. Even if you implement a powerful tool, if your motivation is wrong, how can you use it correctly?
Oh yeah, no, I think it'd be naive to think that AI won't be used for like super profits by venture capital firms in healthcare. I mean, it'll drive up, testing and a lot of different things that are just not going to be great for patients. And hopefully, but I am hopeful that actually it will improve access to healthcare. I do think that it will.
That's true.
And I would still really encourage anybody out there who hasn't used AI yet to go online, use something. There's lots of AI programs, but ChatGPT, ask it a question and try to ask it a follow-up question like, can you give me any possibilities of why what you said is influenced by big pharma? Or you can ask it any question you want and judge for yourself the answers it gives. But you get very good answers that you wouldn't get from a medical professional a lot of the time when you plug in your symptoms. But just make sure that AI is not trying to please you or do whatever you want. You have to really, really filter it out and use your own intelligence. And that gets us onto the next question, which you kind of alluded to there as well, is insurance companies and their influence in leading to an upcoming healthcare collapse, because people are so sick of the insurance companies that doesn't need to be expanded on further. But I know, Peter, you have so many stories to tell and issues with our current insurance system.
It is. Well, I mean, as a specialist, as a cardiologist, half my day is spent with insurance companies, and that's already taken away right there from patient care. It's fighting to get necessary tests approved. It's across the board. It's just, you name it, they have in every single aspect of healthcare. I'm lucky to be in private practice, so I can tell and decide how long I want to spend with patients, but it is really becoming worse and worse every year. And not to mention, and a lot of people out there may have noticed in the United States, is that healthcare insurance rates have just gone up, and they're going up in the new year, which is it's a huge problem. And they're covering less and charging more. Yeah. That's their business model.
Premiums are, go ahead.
And they're going to do that, and they're going to be using AI to deny more. And I've already seen it, and you talked about it before. They're already doing it, and it's frustrating. And you can't. But here's the thing: is there's no one. Healthcare dominates and controls medicine in the U.S., meaning insurance companies, I should say, dominate and control healthcare in the United States. Like, they can tell me as a cardiologist what I can and what I can't do. I have no say in the matter. You can come and say that to me that you have chest pain, the natural workup would be a stress test and an ultrasound of your heart. It's a basic 101 workup. The insurance company can come right around and says, nope, we're not going to cover that. Or I've had it where people have had heart murmurs, where like a sound coming from an abnormal sound coming from one of the valves of your heart. Insurance companies will flat around say, well, statistically, a certain amount of people in the United States will have a murmur that's not bad. So we're just going to take that risk and deny it because they know statistically that some of it will be not harmful, but there will definitely be some harm in that.
No, it's very scary. I mean, one way that this could lead to, a healthcare collapse is that premiums are increasing so dramatically, people stop getting insurance. And I think that's already beginning to happen in a few states. They're seeing the highest levels of non-renewal of programs than they've ever seen. So if in the next year people are just not signing up for medical insurance, what happens is they get sick, go to the hospital, can't pay their bills. The hospital doesn't get paid, it can't pay its bills. That's how a collapse happens. So you can see that a lot of it can start with insurance. And that's just part of it. I mean, there's so many other ways that they're actively destroying the system.
Yeah. And I'm now thinking more and more as you gentlemen are speaking about AI and the role that it's going to play. So you can see, folks, how we have these discussions and they are spontaneous because I started off really on AI as a tool for you to get more information, hopefully, so that you don't need the system so much. You can go to other sources and digest information you wouldn't get elsewhere. But now we've circled back to AI with insurance. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's really something I should make a video on that
We should.
next. Absolutely.
And use
Yeah,
AI.
it's going to actually negatively affect things.
Yeah, I mean, the power of AI right now is you can use it for like nutritional information for yourself as well, like of how you can eat better. And that's really like the thing that's going to help you the most is not relying on the hospitals, emergency rooms, is to really be the healthiest you can be, because then you won't really be a victim of everything that we're talking about. But AI is great for nutritional information.
Yeah, as long as you type in a prompt that it should look at a variety of sources and not go on all of the college recommendations, which are very questionable. But yeah, it will do pretty much whatever you want when you ask it a question.
Well, again, it's a tool. So if the goal is noble, if your goal is to help yourself and find out about nutritional foods, it can be a really good tool. If your goal is to manipulate people and make sure that they don't get the care they need, then the tool is going to be used very inappropriately and hurt people. So it's about the motivation of use. I don't think AI in and of itself is good or bad. I think it's the way we're going to use it. And we know that corporations are going to use it to hurt people. But I think for individuals, it may be a very powerful tool, and it may allow people access to information that they otherwise couldn't get without speaking to a healthcare professional. So that'll be a good thing. So it'll be good and bad.
Yeah. Let's talk about another huge aspect of an upcoming collapse, which is medical professionals leaving and doing other things. We've already seen and we've talked about before, doctors leaving and doing concierge medicine, doing a direct primary care, other alternative ways of working, going online. I mean, there's so much happening. Nurses I know are leaving in droves. It's a very common scenario where a nurse will start working on a floor and then want to branch off into something else much quicker than they used to. So there's a flood of professionals away because everyone who is in healthcare, or most people, have gone in with quite noble intentions, and then they get to work in the system and they realize that what they're doing every day is not aligning with their internal values so much. So if healthcare professionals are leaving, then that obviously is going to cause a big problem.
It is. You're going to see a big fast tracking of healthcare professionals to fill this void. And they're not going to have the experience that you have from going through residency and training and medical school and seeing patients. And that is going to be really prominent. And I think it's in all my career in the past couple of years, I've seen it the most, where people have been looking or trying to find some other type of path to take and just not making medicine their own.
Where you're seeing it a lot, which is scary, is older doctors that the funny thing about medicine is its experience is so vital. What something looks like, smells like, touch it. You get used to seeing the same thing, and it's really strange presentations of common diseases that you get used to seeing that only you are going to recognize, hey, I bet it's this because you're one of the few people that have seen it like that. And the problem is we have older physicians that are leaving sooner than they would have because they're so sick of the system, they feel like they can't do a good job. And that's a huge brain drain. And that's an experience drain. So you're losing the docs that would have taught the younger ones, hey, watch out for this, and imparting that knowledge. So that scares me, is that you're losing these, really brilliant docs too early. We're going to get a lot more time out of it.
And that's, yeah.
We're seeing it now. So if you go to your primary care now, it's become more of a triage than actually primary care appointments now. So, and a lot of it could be lack of experience, but if you have a cough, you're going to see a lung doctor. If,
Right.
chest pain or something, or something even less, you're going to see a cardiologist. And that's no offense, Ben, because you're very good primary care and very thorough and has that old school mentality. But the reality of it is most people out there, when you go to a primary care, we've subdivided the body into organs. And no
Right.
longer are we doing like a holistic approach. And so, a lot of people have a cardiologist for their high blood pressure. They have a neurologist if they have headaches. They have a pulmonologist for a cough.
Yeah, it's really sad. And primary care, there was a time not so long ago where I would ask somebody as a hospital doctor, who is your primary care doctor? And they would know right away. Dr. Smith is my primary care doctor. But now most people don't know who their primary care doctor is. They'll pause, say, oh, I'm not sure. I see a different one. Or I had this doctor who's left. And it's like a merry-go-round. Nobody stays. I mean, primary care is so difficult. And that's why, let's be quite frank, few doctors want to do it because it's almost been made an impossible job. So it's terrible what's happening. This has been mirrored in many different countries. Let's move on now to metabolic health, an area close to my heart, no pun intended. But I actually believe that this could lead to collapse even bigger, even faster than anything else that we've mentioned, because when healthcare systems were designed, whether we're talking about here in the United States or United Kingdom, they were not designed for a population, let's be quite frank, which is increasingly morbidly obese. You have approaching now 60-70% rate of obesity in adults. You have soaring rates of obesity in adolescents. You have the associated diseases, diabetes type 2, heart disease, inflammation, more medications. And funnily enough, I also think that this whole argument about healthcare being a right, it takes on a whole new meaning and dimension when you have, unfortunately, such a large percentage of the population who are metabolically sick. How can the system possibly give all of these people what they need when they are so sick metabolically? It's impossible. And we're only at the tip of the iceberg here. I hate to say it's going to get worse when you look around.
Here's a positive spin on that. And this is in the first time that I've seen in the past couple of years where actually patients are coming to me really more knowledgeable about metabolic health and questioning medications that were just thrown at them in the past for the first time and realizing that, well, I can do it maybe just by eating better or being more active. I don't necessarily need to be on a statin medication that was started 20 years ago on me. Or just, do you guys see that? I mean, I'm seeing a lot of shift of just medication dependent to being more proactive as opposed to reactive.
I'm seeing that more in the older population. I feel like people are beginning to, the older population's beginning to kind of wise up.
You mean over 60, 65?
Over 60, 65.
Yeah, very interesting.
Beginning to wise up and kind of ask some questions. The younger generation seems to have thrown caution to the wind and is just, you're walking around, you're seeing younger children that are more obese and eating very poorly. I'm seeing a lot of parents that aren't interested at all. I mean, I'm seeing a big divide. It's an older population that's becoming, very focused on health and wellness, and a younger generation that doesn't feel like it has anything to do with them.
Which is astonishing, really, because you would think that younger people in the prime of their lives, I've talked about this before in many videos, would be motivated. Which is, of course, despite what the mainstream media and the medical establishment says, they give the impression that staying healthy is nothing about willpower, when every human achievement in history has been about willpower and determination. But yeah, it's really sad that metabolic health and trying to stay healthy, young people, I mean, let's approach this with empathy. Poor mental health comes into it, spiritual health. We have a escalating cost of living crisis. I mean, many younger people don't feel hope. And what's the first thing anybody does when they don't feel hope is they abuse their bodies. That's natural.
And with the older population, I think it's a really push to realize that, well, medications are not part of aging. And just because you get older, I think people always thought, well, it's just natural to be on medications. I think there's been a bit of awakening where people are questioning if they really need to be on this medication. And you should always do it. We've talked about this in our podcast many times before, to question what you're on and if you still need to be on medication. I still see patients every day that have been on medications that for years, that I see them for the first time, and they don't know who started it. They still need to be on it. And people really are improving quality of life by taking their metabolic health into their own hands and not just relying.
Yeah, if anybody's watching who's over 60 and you're trying very hard with your metabolic health, doing things naturally, we're rooting for you to succeed, because it's always the best way. The healthcare system, yes, it's there. Don't ignore any serious symptoms, but it's there when you need it. And there's lots of things you can do. Decline in health and getting sucked into this whole medical industrial complex that we're talking about is not inevitable. Always remember that. Which gets to the last point, really, that I wanted to talk about, which is the statistics themselves on health. For most of the last century, we saw an increase in life expectancy, and previously deadly diseases were kept at bay. Like, let's say 100 years ago, TB was such a big issue. But now, over the last 10 years, we're seeing that curve go down. And that alone is alarming. And I don't think the healthcare system can cope with this. And we're going to see life expectancy decrease, according to projections, significantly.
It's very concerning.
Yeah.
I mean, everything we're saying, so we're talking to you about all these different things we're seeing, which are concerning, but the statistics are beginning to tell the same story with the obesity rates, with the mortality rates, with the heart attack, things like that. You're starting to see the statistics tell the same story that we're telling you here. And that's why there could be a healthcare collapse within a year if we don't right the ship, because everything is pointing to that.
Yeah, I see the older population actually improving their quality of life and actually living longer, better lives. But it's the next wave of the younger population, as you said, where it's going to be a huge burden on the healthcare system, because I see it all the time. I mean, I was at a soccer match with my son in the stadium, and I couldn't believe on how many young kids there were obese. And actually, and a lot of the parents were too. And so you're right.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Invariably, the parents are obese. I mean, it's in my opinion, a social contagion. And we'll talk about this phenomenon more in a future episode. But those were the main points that we wanted to impart on you. The first signs of the collapse will probably be everything getting worse. You won't get what you need, and you will find that many people around you as well will start pulling themselves out of the system and trying to do other things. The sad thing is that not everybody can afford to do that, has the means to do that, but it could even be something like seeking like a naturopath, an alternative practitioner. I'm not saying that anybody should or shouldn't do that. I'm stating that this is going to be a sign of people pulling themselves out of the system because it's failing and it's collapsing. So let's have closing statements then from each of us. Dr. Peter, you want to go first?
As much as the negative we talked about, there is a lot of positive. And really, if you are someone that can be more proactive than reactive, you will avoid a lot of the problems that we have been talking about this whole podcast.
Yeah.
We're painting a grim picture, but yes, you can keep yourself out of getting sucked into the medical industrial complex by doing the things we talk about on this podcast and by remaining healthy. So your chances of getting stuck within a broken system your chances of getting out of it are a lot better if you stay healthy, if you educate yourself, and you make sure that you're doing everything you can not to be part of this horrible thing that's coming.
Yeah, I second those two excellent points. I have little to add apart from the message that getting sucked into the medical industrial complex is not inevitable. You can always be doing things. You know that something is not right. You know that the system is failing you. It's failing your family. Society is moving in the wrong direction, sadly, in many different ways. And all you can do is stand strong. And I'll leave you with this thought, a reality of humanity even the way humans operate at an individual level, is that sometimes things need to reach rock bottom before they improve. You've probably seen that in people around you with individual life situations. It's just a reality of life. And I feel like the healthcare system, whether we're talking about the USA or UK, this is what's going to happen. We are on the decline. Let's not mince words here. Things are not getting better. They are getting worse. They'll hit rock bottom and then need to be rebuilt. And maybe that is the cycle of life right there. I'll end on that philosophical note. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We do appreciate it. We are rooting, we are cheering you on to do well for your health. We know how difficult the system is. Keep going, everyone. Check again in the links down below for our natural health and well-being store, ohiwellness.com if you're in the USA, North America, ohiwellness.co if you're in the UK, Europe. Check out our new ebook section. We're very excited to be expanding that. Take care. We'll speak in the next video.